morning. Today we'll talk about property transfer and why it is required and the concept behind it. So, and after the property transfer, we'll also start the assertions in this session. So, first question is we talked about properties. We saw like how we can define properties at what level, how to access those properties to parameterize our test wherever required. So property transfer is something to send the data. You are any data, okay? So for us, it is more mainly we are concerned with the response data, right? So the data we call as the properties in SoapUI. So this property transfer used to transfer properties, okay, between test steps and the test cases containing, okay, so between test cases, test steps and test cases, okay. So in a test case, okay, so suppose I'll give a practical example how. So suppose one post method is there, okay, and suppose this endpoint address is create user, like what we saw earlier, and which creates a new user. Okay, so response, if you see, uh, response will contain like name, and say suppose I say test user, and response will also contain ID, because this is auto generated ID, which will be like ABC something, okay, I don't know, because it's GUID, so it can be anything, okay. Now the another method is the put method, okay, or it can be get, or it can be delete, any method which requires uh, this user ID, okay, and the endpoint address is like this, update user, and it will be defined in your Swagger doc or API documentation like this, okay. And the JSON will means the payload here, this is response, let me write the response of this post method, okay. So we send some payload, okay, to create one test user, and the response we got as a means this is a hypothetical ID, and name ID is auto generated. So whenever you create a user in the system, it will create a ID for it to uniquely identify this user, okay. And any other operations in the future, we have to utilize this ID because this is unique in the system. Test user name can be common, but ID will be always unique. So if I have to update, delete, or get this particular user, uh, this URL is parameterized, okay. So you need to pass the ID here, and this you may have noted in your uh, if you have worked with the APIs. So suppose this is the payload, okay, and this uh, update user, what it will do, it will update the name of the user, okay. So say suppose something I want to update, okay. So if I'm using Postman, SoapUI, any client, okay, what I can do, manually what we do, I will execute this post from the from the response, I will get the ID and I will go and copy paste here. And then I will run this post to update the user name that we generally do, right? And this is kind of interview question also, a scenario where how you can, there will be no direct question on property transfer. It will be asked like how to update this user, okay? But you don't have to hard code this value, this ID. So in this situation, this property transfers comes handy because what we have to do between this post and test steps, we need to add one more step that is called property transfer. Okay, and this will transfer from this post response. I will transfer ID to put request. So it means first this test step will be executed, and the property we have to get from here, okay, and store it somewhere. Okay, so at it says I can transfer property at directly to test steps, or better to store it somewhere first, like we have seen properties. We'll store that and then parameterize my update user. Okay, so this is important steps we have to include in between, so that next time if test is run or your SoapUI scripts are run, it never require any manual uh, intervention to go and copy this ID and put here. It will always, your property transfer will always get the ID and enter here, because we have parameterized the URL of this, and it will always run. It will never fail based on this. Okay, so this is one interview scenario. It is asked, and people get confused like what is the user property transfer, or in it sometimes there will be no direct question on property transfer. It will be asked like this: if I have to create a user and then update, how I can do. Okay, so let us see the using the APIs what we are using. Okay, so I have created one create user. Okay, so let us create a test case, kind of end-to-end test case. So end-to-end test case means uh, it means, okay, so let me say E to E. Okay, test case. Suppose so end-to-end test case means what? It means from creating user till the I will cover some feature of my application. So suppose creating a user. So I will first create user, then update user, then get something, and then delete something. Okay. So in end-to-end test case, what we do, nothing else we do. In place of individual request, we include those requests into this test case. Okay. So so what I can do, as we already have created this post create user. Okay, so there is a and already I think I have created this. So okay, this is not required. So there's a concept called clone. Okay, test step clone. So if I require same thing in my test end-to-end test case or anywhere, why should I go and again create the test cases from here, right? I can do it, but if I already have, then why I require to go? So what I can do, I can right click and you see the clone step. Okay, so clone step, and this is the kind of good practice. If you have already those test cases added in somewhere in your test suite, clone that. Don't go and always create from the scratch as we did earlier. Now it will ask which project, which test suite, and the test case. So test case, say I can say end-to-end test case. Okay. Okay. So now you see this is cloned to this end-to-end test case, right? Now I can open, and as it requires this, so let us copy the clone the property as well. Okay. And I can say properties, then I can select the same end-to-end test case, and properties should be the first step because the post is require some these properties, right? So press control and arrow key to move it up or down based on the your requirement. All right, so property have this one, your post user this one. Okay, let us run this so that I can see, we can make sure like it is working fine, right? Okay, now it returns the name, job, ID. Suppose I want this ID, okay, to my, let us add a put request first, then we'll talk. So still we haven't used put request. So let us create, and you see this is the ID, okay, user's ID. So it means this can change. This can be ID2, ID3, or whatever ID we created. Okay, so that we can get from the post. Okay, so let us go and add a new uh, REST service from URI. Till now we have added only get user and create user, not the update user, right? So that's why we are adding. So this you have to do for each and every new endpoint. So go and add, okay? And this requires payload, okay? So okay, so payload I don't think we need to provide here, or we can provide just to check. Okay, so I can copy this, or I can paste here, right? Okay, so let us rename this, like update users, okay? And rename this one also, and say like update user. And this one, how can I rename, like the naming convention we followed, put update user, okay? Or I can get like this way. Okay, now we have to add the a test case for this, right? Or I need to add into the end-to-end test case, right? So what I can do, I can go and right click, add to test case. So it will ask which test case you want to add. So I want to add in the end-to-end test case. Okay, click OK, and name you can provide, right? So right, okay. Now the question is, we have to parameterize this, and okay. I think I need to, we do need to do here. Okay. In SoapUI, sometimes it is yeah, it is already disabled those things. So whatever the request related things you have to set here. Okay. So suppose I have to parameterize this ID, user ID. Okay. So I say ID, and this one I can leave blank. Okay. And what I can do, I can say like ID. Okay. And this one I can parameterize, right? Let us save this. Okay, just 1 second. I need to see the if this syntax is correct. Okay, here actually it is source. What I need to choose, it is a template. Yeah. So if you query, so query parameter, it is for here. Okay. So we'll talk about like what is query parameters and all. If you have to parameterize this resource at this level, endpoint level, so you need to select. So there are some styles. Okay. So how you need to pass? You need to pass in headers. So it will go as a header, a request header, or if you want to inquiry, so it will go in this parameter. If you require to URL, so you need to parameterize this ID. Okay, this way. So you have to select template. Value, currently I can use 2. Okay, and or you can leave blank. We can see it later. So let me delete this one. Only thing is I just wanted to make sure like this works. If it's required curly braces, I hope it requires. Okay, so let us add to test case. So as I said, okay, so what is required as a request? Okay, because here you cannot edit those things. So you need to utilize uh, at the interface level here. Okay, so adding headers, parameterize this, all this, because here we don't have that option. So we make sure like we are uh, adding all the required things at the interface level, and then we can create the test case for that. Okay, so uh, how to get ID? Okay, so we'll get ID from this. Okay, so let us add a property transfer step. Okay, and what I can say, mm, transfer user ID. Okay, transfer user ID to mm, or just like this only. Okay, so here first what we need to do, okay, first we move it to at the after the post as I discussed, because uh, after the post executed, then we'll get the response, and then when we get the response, then we need to transfer it, right? So without getting executed, we cannot get the response. So first execute it, and then I can say ID or any name you can specify. Here you need to select the source, from which source you want to transfer. So it's post create user, right? And you see here, like from your test, it will show each and every step, okay, from this particular end-to-end test case. So that we need to select the source, and then the property. So you see a lot of properties will be here. So we need to select the response, right? So from where we want to get the property from the response. So that we need to select. And X path language, our application is using JSON, so I need to select the JSON path. Okay, and well, let us go to, yeah, so it is ID. Okay, so we need to write some JSON paths in syntaxes to retrieve that ID. So what you can do, you can write dollar. Okay, and you see here it is in this curly braces, so it means directly we can access it. Okay, so dollar dot id. Okay, or without dollar using also dollar dot, you can use directly id. Okay, so that also will work in this case. Okay, so now you have to select the target. So source we already selected. Let us select the target where you want to transfer this. So I can choose either post user request, but I don't want to utilize that post user. I want to transfer so that if it requires in another scenarios like delete or get user, there also I would utilize this. Okay, so I need to save it somewhere which can be utilized throughout the test case, right? So that we need to do. Okay, so let us select that, and because the property step, the first property, okay, step we created, there I want to store it. So to store it, let us say like I say id or any name you can give. Okay, here you want to transfer that, and properties. So now you see the which property in you have selected target as property. So in which property you want to transfer. So you can select id, and the path language, make sure you select the JSON path so that it works. Okay, so let us run and see what happens. Okay, so you see here, if there is something error, it will show the error here. And ID, the value 957, whatever we have in the post 957, right? It's transferred. Let us go to the properties tab. You see here, ID 957, it transferred to this level. Okay. So any question at this property transfer stage?
Ramana check.
No.
Okay. So now I have to utilize this here. Okay. And because of we have parameterize here in the property level. So how we were transferring properties ID. Okay. Now you see a 957 is here, and let us run this. Okay. So you see it is running successfully. And this one also I can parameterize. Like if I have to pass some name and job the same way like we did for the ID. Now see now what we have to do, if I want to run this test case many times, so do I need to bother about like the property ID? No, right? I can run anytime. Okay. And this time if you see, the property will be different one, 741. Okay. Next time I'll run, always will get some different properties, and it will automatically transferring that to the update user. Okay. So this is the benefit of property transfer step. And we should know how it works, what we need to do to and which situation, in scenario we need this. So both we should be aware and where we should utilize. So yeah, this is the part of the property transfer. Uh, okay, so I think we are clear here. So let us move to assertions.
Manoj, can you show me the scenario where we can directly pass the request from property from one request to another request?
Okay, so you are saying like how can I propose transfer from post to put directly?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so I think in the same way, target I need to select the uh, put user. Okay, so let me create another property transfer step. Okay, but maybe that will okay. So okay, let me create another and disable this one. So there are things like you can disable also which you don't want to execute. Okay, so let us add a step property transfer and name I'll just leave it as it is, and I can move it up. Okay, here ID. Okay, from the post create user response JSON path. I want to transfer that ID and how to get. So this comes with some practice. Okay, so we have to practice the how to write JSON path to get those. We'll see in uh, more on this. Now I want to transfer to the uh, update user. Okay, so I can select where I want to transfer this. Okay, endpoint. Okay, or a request ID. So you see here the header one resource we added as a variable, that is ID. If you remember while we creating
Yeah.
the request
Yes.
interface, so that I can choose, and then I can JSON path, and let's run this. Right, so it is transferring. Now I can go to here and it will be 215 here. It is transferring here now. Okay, let us run one more time this. Now I just ran this post user, create user, so we got 613, but still your this will have 215. So let us transfer to whatever the newly generated ID is. Okay, now see 613 is transferred. Let us go to update user. Now it will be 613. So this way, I have to select the target label set, which target I want to send it. So earlier we selected properties. Now we're selecting the uh, update user label directly to the request, and I transfer that. So, but the problem in this such kind of thing, if you require, okay, if you require only for one time, like then you can do this way. But if you require ID for multiple operations like delete, get, or any other operations where depend on this ID, whatever is created, always transfer to the property step and then utilize.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So I think we don't have the option to transfer directly to the response also. I mean, not response, not to the request payload.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Mukesh, can you repeat again?
Suppose I would like to change the name of this person job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can I parameterize, means can I do the property transfer directly to the payload from the other request?
Okay, so yes, here a request. Uh, see, to the transfer through the request. Mm,
I think we need to create the variable there also.
right, right. So first we need to add for each and every variable, like what you transfer to what level. Okay, so ID, and then username and job. All those you can create here as a new property. Okay,
Okay.
transfer value, and then you can choose, and then you can utilize these values there. Okay.
Okay. So in the
uh,
payload, I have to give the syntax like in the place of name value like dollar and the variable name, right?
right. But I would suggest uh, better to always utilize these properties. Okay, so
Okay.
uh, if you want to transfer some properties, transfer to the properties level, and it will be clear also, like everyone, how you are transferring these properties. Okay, so do you have any scenario where you need to transfer any step to the next step, or request to the next request body?
Just what I thought is like, whatever the job or name I get, right, from the post response after creating. So I would like to update those things using the property transfer and directly not transfer it to the put request. So,
Hmm.
so that I can,
Yeah, we
so
can do that way, but I would suggest do it in
yeah,
the proper way, in the like transferring
correct.
to the properties, and
Yeah.
then
So that
utilize.
it is reusable to any other request also.
Right. And if you transfer to the properties, same way, I think I can go here and like proper properties, I can get all those properties, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so yeah, this way.
Okay.
So from properties, I'm transferring to properties, then I'm reading from there, and then I have parameterized my request body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any other question before we move to the next step?
No, I just need some hands-on experience on this. So once I complete this, I'll just let you know if I have any queries.
Okay. All right. The next step is we are talking about assertions. We have to talk about assertions. Okay, so what is assertions? So assertions we use uh, to validate something, not just to validate. In this case of SoapUI, we need to validate the response, right? So in normal case, what we do, we send a request, okay, like post request I send or put request. I got some response here. I can manually go, okay, and I verify like, okay, the name what I send is Morpheus, and the job is Zion resident. Okay, so I can confirm manually, okay, my response is correct. But would that be a practical approach if we have numbers of test cases? How many times we'll go and verify manually, right? Because if we are creating some uh, regression test suite or some smoke test, this is not possible to go and manually check every time for each, like create, post, update, delete, like response is correct or not. How difficult it is, right? So uh, that there, this assertions comes handy, and SoapUI provides a lot of assertions. Okay, so uh, we can validate status code. Okay, we can validate like some path is matching or not, some uh, like in our case, some property return is there or not. Response property we can validate. Okay, and what else? Yeah, so based on our requirement, that it has provided like what we want to uh, validate. Okay, so sometimes there will be a kind of SLA, service level agreement, that any endpoint should return within 2 seconds or 2 milliseconds, so that I can apply a assertion for this. If any request is taking more than 2 seconds, it will fail. Okay, so assertion is always used to validate and pass or fail your test step, right? Based on some conditions, what we say as assertion. Then there will be we'll see JSON path match, uh, existence of property. Okay, so different ways are there how you can validate your response and make sure that whatever server is returning, that is fine, that is correct. Okay, so you see here when you create a test step. Okay, so let us first go to the post user, and you see at the test step level, you see assertion here, right? And if you click this plus sign, so this many property content, so it has contains JSON path count, existence match. Okay, a lot of properties we have, xpath match, and then we have compliances like invalid HTTP code, valid HTTP code will be there. Okay, all these. Then SLA I was talking about. We can add a script assertions as well. Then there's security. So based on like what I have to use, I can select from here. Okay. So let us say start with the valid HTTP code. Okay. So valid HTTP code says like what the status HTTP code, HTTP status code you want every time from this request. So I think it is 201. So there are status codes which are meant for some purpose. I think everyone should know like what are those HTTP status codes. Okay. So see, there is some naming convention. Whatever starts with 200, or you can say like 200, 201, something like this. Okay, 204. It always to means create something, create or a success. Okay, okay, or something, right? Then there is a 300 is range, 301 to like this. Then there is a and 300 you need to see like what for it. Then there is a uh, not found or bad request kind of thing, not found. If something, some error is in your request, so this is for the request, let me say, not request errors. If there is something error in your request, so you will get 401, 404, you may be aware like bad request are not found. Okay. Then there is a server error. If some error at the server error level, it is denotes by 500 ranges. Okay, so these are some codes I think we should be aware. And 300, uh, what it is for use, you just check like what is the 300. I currently am not.
I think that is for redirections.
Okay, thanks, Matthias. Yeah. Okay, so we should aware like which status code, at least for one or two, which is used for what, so that we'll make sure we are aware of like when it will be passed, when it will fail. Okay, so in our case, valid status code is we are expecting 201. Okay, so if I click this, this assertion will be green, and your test case will also turn green because it is passing. Now, if I change this, suppose I expect 200. Okay, so this will fail. So it means based on my assertion validations, this step will be pass or fail, and your test case will be marked as pass or fail, right? So here I'm saying like I'm sending some value, but what I'm expecting from the response, that's also what we do in manual testing, right? We fail test step or test case based on the actual and expected results. So same thing we do here uh, for the assertion. So I'm validating this response, and if you have to see the status code, you can go here and you see 201 created. Okay, so from here we are getting that like what is valid status code. Okay, another should always use that that is invalid status code. Okay, so here the ranges I can include, like I don't want 400 for 404. I don't want 500. Okay, so these some sort of errors I can put in invalid. Okay, so it will be always pass. So suppose if I say 201, okay, so it will fail because in my response 201 is there, but invalid status code means I don't want those in my responses. Okay, so always for your purpose, always use what you don't want or don't expect from the response to return these values. Okay, all right. Then move to the next assertion, and that is about the property content. So contents is very simple. Okay, if I go and say like uh, I want to see like test user is there or QA is there or not, so I can put that string. Okay, ignore case in comparison, like uh, a small case, letter cases, upper cases, either I want to exclude, so that is fine. And same way there will be an not contents as well. Yeah, not contents. So it says like it searches for non-existence string token. Okay, but it's not always comes handy, and we rarely use in our practical thing, means practical projects. Okay, focus on these two things. Okay, JSON path match and JSON path existence match. Okay, so first let us see like what is a JSON path match. Okay, which we are going to use frequently. So it's as it says, uses an JSON path expressions to existence of a node and compare the result to expected value. Okay, so whatever you see in the this JSON, all these are as a node. Okay, and it can be array. So array in array it will be multiple things. Okay, so okay, let us take example of this get users. I think there will have uh, array also. Let's run this. Okay, now you see, so all these are nodes in JSON. Okay, here data in array. Whenever you see this uh, square bracket, so it means in array, and it will contain multiple sets of data. So this is one set of data, and this is second data set. So this way we have multiples. So let us use this and add a JSON path match. Okay, so when you open this, it will include like this, it will open like this. So okay, all right. So okay, so first suppose simple thing, I can, what I need to match is page. Okay, so this way my expected value I can say like 2. Okay, so if I test, response matches the content, right? And if you do select from current, so it means it takes from the value from your current response. So if I say select from current, so it will uh, give it 2 here, right? But these kind of some values you should not hard code, because this will be changing based on your request, right? Suppose this property page number gets changed. Okay, let me close this, and this one, suppose it gets changed. So your page number will also change. So if I suppose if I'm passing from property 3, so this will be page 3 and your assertion will fail. So always remember that we do not have to hard code this expected value. Avoid as much as possible. Oh, we did not say. Oh, okay. All right. So let us say dot page. Okay. And just to check like you are writing the correct syntaxes. Okay. Always use this. So here it is, syntax is fine, but comparison failed, so that's fine. And what we have to do here, the same parameter I need to pass this way, like how we parameterize our request. Okay, so now you see the comparison matches, right? So it always takes the value from the properties, like whatever you pass in the request, that is expected, and this will return actual. So we are comparing actual and the expected. So never hard code, wherever possible avoid this, and just say. So suppose let us change this make it 3. Okay, and run your test, right? Your uh, your request is passed, it is showing green because of your assertion is passed. It is not dependent on the hard coded value here, because if you have done it earlier like 2, it could have failed because it is 3 here, right? So never hard code these kind of values. Always try to use the uh, properties parameterization how we have seen earlier. So same thing, how you parameterize your request body and all. Same way you can parameterize, you can use those syntaxes in the expected result, so that it will get the value from the properties or the label where you have defined the properties. Okay. So you have to make your test more and more generic, so that it doesn't depend on any hard coded value, like kind of assertions at least. And it always good practice to rename in a proper uh, manner, so that if someone sees it will be good to what we are validating, right? So here I can say suppose users. Okay, and I'm validating page. Okay, simple name I can give. So this will be like user's page, user response. I'm validating page property. If I create per page, so the next step I can do. And here also you don't need to go and each time create a new assertion, there's a property called clone. You can clone it, and let's say like I'm want to validate per page. Okay, if you are similar kind of assertion you want to apply, okay, and currently there is no, so let us, I say, select from current, it is 3. Okay, here I need to change, right? Because per page, it is per page, right? Or you can utilize the creating from the scratch, or you can clone it. Okay, so you see here the naming convention you should follow, so that we whenever anyone see, like it will be useful, like for which property you are have validation here. Okay, so let us go back to, I will give simple example of another one, which is array. Okay, and pass it to 2 here and run it again. Okay, now you see the data here, right? And it has like email ID, first name, last name. So we should avoid the hard coding IDs. Okay, so let us, for simple way, I will show you a simple way, and I think I can clone this one, and I say users data and then ID, right? Similar, like you can follow like users data and ID. I'm adding a session for the ID. And if it is a simple, I think we saw like dollar dot, we were able to access. Okay, but for like for array, how we can use? So we need to put data, and data is an array. So you have to put square brackets, and first 0 means the first index. Okay, so 0 means okay, let me save this and then I can okay. So see, array, if you have consider programming little bit, so array, how it works, the first element, it always at a 0 index. Indexing starts with a 0. Okay, so this will be at 0 index whole from this early curly bracket to this curly bracket. Second index is from this curly bracket to this curly bracket, and so on. Okay, so this is how array works, right? Now I want to get this ID, okay, from the first, so I can say this way dot ID and select from current. So you see I got the ID, this one ID. If I have to get the ID from the below one, let me close this. Suppose I have to get the ID of this one, right? So what I need to say, I need to say 1, index 1, and then ID. So it will give it ID from that. But and the similar way, if I have to get the suppose email, right? It is email, right? So I can say email, and it will return me the email, and I can save this, right? So if it is an array, we can retrieve this way. But here one thing you see, we are hard coding index number, that we should avoid always. So in the next class, we'll start with this, how we can uh, avoid these hard coding values, how different ways of writing JSON path expressions we can utilize, so that we don't hard code it. And this is not a good practice to hard code indexes, at least, because indexes may change environment to environment, and that's why we don't hard code. Okay, so that's it for today. That when we'll meet next time, we'll uh, further we'll talk about the other this some like what I said about the how to avoid hard coding in the assertion, and the other different types of assertion we'll see, and then further we'll discuss.